our belief is that the best way to learn how to code and how to do programming is to actually write code and learn by doing. That changes the way that you consume information basically from the learning platform. The AI assistant doesn't tell them, okay, here's the final answer. It just tells them, here is something you might have done wrong. Maybe look at this part of your code and try to understand. Maybe you need to fix something over here.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the EVN Disrupt podcast. Our guest today is Martin Mirakyan, founder and CEO of Profound Academy, an educational platform that helps institutions deliver a personalized computer science education for their students. We spoke about how the platform utilizes an interactive approach to education and their AI assistant, which provides personalized help to students when they're struggling with a question. Thank you for listening. Martin, thank you so much for coming today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Let's start with a little bit of your background. Tell us where you grew up, where you went to school, and how you got into the IT world.
Oh yeah, I was born in Armenia, Yerevan. So I went to school in IPA High School, where I first got introduced to computer science in general. At first, I didn't know anything about it. So during the first interview, when they were getting you to know and the first exam of getting to the school, they were asking what do you know about computer science? You want to become a programmer? Do you know even any languages? And I didn't know any, so I couldn't even tell C, C++, even not the names. So after that, during the next couple of years, I started getting really involved. And the good part was that over there were a couple of people that were really involved in it. So they were the ones that were guiding most of the process. So I started getting into competitive programming. I don't know if you know about it, but it's basically Olympiads competing with each other, and that competitive spirit was really motivational, I guess. So, and after graduating from IPA High School, I got into the university, which was the American University of Armenia, and then for the master's, I got to the Polytechnic University of Lisbon, which is in Portugal. Right. So yeah, but in the meantime, while I was doing my bachelor's, I was also, at first, I got introduced to machine learning stuff, a little bit of neural networks at PixArt.
Okay.
As far as I remember, they were doing
style transfer and things like that.
Yeah, but the way they got us into that was that they came to our university and just said, okay, we're doing a seminar, then we will do some trainings. And I remember machine learning was kind of a cool buzzword back then, which not that many people knew about it. So I was pretty interested in that. So I went and started their trainings. And then after a couple of months, I think they offered the job over there. So we started working. And then after a while, I moved to a little bit more research oriented field, basically getting into the research area of the machine learning. Yerevan, basically. Yeah. So we started doing research over there. And then after that, I went to do my master's, where I continued in the direction of machine learning. And then, basically got more involved in it. And after finishing it, got back here.
What was your focus at Yerevan, and what area was your research in?
There were a couple of projects. So the one of the most interesting ones was natural language processing related. So we were working on understanding how to better represent words in language models, how to represent them as vector representations, basically how to better represent words as numbers, right? To make it more easy for computers to understand our language. Right. So that was one of the projects. And I think it was also the capstone project for the AUA.
To your master's.
So, so that was a good combination of two in one. So but other than that, there were also projects related to bio field, also some projects with, I think it was something related to coloring as well, but they were a little bit smaller and more shorter, I guess. Most of the focus for Yerevan at that point was natural language processing, as far as I remember. Yeah.
And then from there you went on to Lisbon and did your master's.
Yeah. And while doing my master's, it was mostly focused on, so basically the final project was how to automate the process of designing neural networks. So right now, if you try to design a neural network, you would basically like code all the blocks in there and then do the training for that neural net. But we were trying to automate that process, like to remove the human from the loop, basically. Right. But it's like a really, really difficult process. Yeah. So it's very hard to get some results in there, and most of them are very random. So yeah, there are a lot of challenges in there.
And then from there, did you start working, or did you jump right into Profound Academy and started your company?
I think it was both at the same time. So while I was doing my final like thesis, I started to teach competitive programming back in high school. So I basically took a very small group of students and started to practice competitive programming problems with them. And at that time, I realized that I need some kind of platform to like automate the process of like homeworks and all that stuff, so that they are able to go in there, like submit their work, and I don't have to do anything to check it. So basically I automated that part and started teaching with that. Like the first versions, to be honest, of the platform were like really terrible. Like, it was,
and they were experimented on students.
Yeah. It was like, I spent probably like 2 weeks of rolling out the first version, and I had to use it because I already had the classes. So it was like basically forced going to production as soon as possible.
It's a good good catalyst to get your product out.
For sure. And then we iterated a lot from there, and like
So tell us, what is Profound Academy?
So right now we help universities and schools to teach computer science, and we help them to make sure that they deliver the best in-depth knowledge as possible. Let's get one level down, like to understand what it is and like how we actually do that. So our belief is that the best way to learn how to code and how to do programming is to actually write code and like learn by doing. So the platform enables you to dive into code as much as possible and write code, do a lot of mistakes, submit, see the answers, and get instant feedback right there. So that really helps students when they start learning. So the way they do it is just they go select a course and they start progressing one by one through all the levels and progress through all the rankings. They see all their progress basically. And the platform does all the heavy lifting for like checking, giving feedback, showing them their progress, and like motivating them in the meantime. All that is done automatically by the platform. So in that spirit, when you look at what the teachers are doing, we basically automate a lot of like mundane work that they have to do. Imagine right now, a lot of universities and schools, when they do computer science, the way the homeworks work is they hand out the homework, then students go home, they solve the homework, they bring back in a couple of days. Then in about a week, the teacher has already graded it. Then the teacher gives the homework back. And in that meantime, the students usually forget what they have written as a homework, and the feedback is kind of like old already. So in our platform, that feedback is instant.
Automatic, right?
So it's like right there. And if the students have the questions, like they're a little bit stuck, they don't know how to progress this little part, how to fix their errors, they can either ask in the forum to like get some answer from their peers, or ask the AI assistant, which is thankfully ChatGPT is pretty good with like assisting students right now. So it helps a lot.
Right. Does the platform also have lessons for learning things from scratch, or is it mostly intended for practice and homework and assignments?
Oh yeah, it's both theoretical and practical. So it takes you from complete beginner to pretty advanced places. So students start from the very, very beginning, like they don't know anything. Complete zero understanding about programming, how to write code, even how to like interact with the website. But soon they progress to like pretty advanced places, pretty advanced understanding of the programming language and some algorithms, data structures, and other fields.
Okay. And what languages are on the platform? And is it just computer science related, or is it more broad in its scope?
We are currently focusing mostly on the computer science niche to make sure that we really, really like do a good job with delivering the best possible product for that. Maybe in the future we might go broader to STEM. And we have some experiments, like really cool ones, especially for math. I can talk a little bit about that as well.
Tell us about it.
But yeah, mostly it's computer science for now. And there are like many different languages that basically students can try, like C#, Java, C++, Python, like you name it. So they can try out with different languages. But for the courses that are publicly available, it's mostly Python. We're going to have some JavaScript course released pretty soon as well. And they can learn some algorithms and data structures with any language that they want.
Very cool. And right now, is it just for, you said there are publicly available courses, but how's the platform structured? Is it for schools to use in their classrooms for their students, or can I as an individual go online and sign up as well?
Yeah, we have both.
Okay.
So we try to make sure that anyone that has enough motivation to learn can go ahead and start learning on their own. But we also want to make sure that the schools and universities have the best tools possible to make sure that their students get the best possible education. So we provide them with tools, and we also provide them with content which is fully customizable, so they can take any part of our course or even the full course if they want, and they can customize it to their needs
based on their curriculum and things like that.
Right.
And they can add their content as well, or is it things that you have already?
Yeah. They can add anything. They can even extend course or create course from scratch. So they can do basically anything on the platform that we can.
Okay. Yeah. That's really interesting. So they can build like, I don't know, IPs or FISMATs, like introduction to computer science class in the platform.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's really interesting. I want to hear about the math thing, but before then, I'm curious about like your general approach to how to get students to not just learn, but also learn more effectively. Because on the website, I saw a lot of things like talking about like gamification, like practice-based approaches and things like that. What are those in general approaches, and why are they effective?
There are a couple of things that are gamified on the platform. So we don't try to make it as a game, so it's a little bit serious in terms of like the environment. But there are a couple of things that really motivate the students. So the first one is they see how much they have progressed every day. So they see their progress throughout the course. So that's pretty important. I mean, a lot of platforms hide that to like focus on the current
learning,
current lesson or like your current state. But we try to show them their progress all the time. So besides that, it's really important to like show them their activities throughout the last month, last year. So they see how much they have worked throughout that season, basically. So, and you probably know like Duolingo shows this strikes. Yeah, we have that as well.
Do you guys have a mascot too, like an owl or something?
Almost. So yeah, we show them how consistent they are basically. And there is also rankings, but that can be turned on and off depending on the instructor's preference.
Yeah.
So if they want to encourage some competition, so if that is like, for instance, a competitive programming class, then most probably you want to show the rankings. But if it's something like
a
more
general
private,
class, it's a little bit rude, maybe.
Probably,
yeah.
You would prefer to hide it somehow.
Especially in today's like educational environments, I think. So there's this famous TED Talk by one of the co-founders of Duolingo about, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
About how like the world has become, I might be like misrepresenting exactly what he said, but like the world has become like addicted to these like dopamine devices, right? And he's like, how do we do the same thing for learning? And Duolingo's entire approach is like you collect like gems and hearts, and like you have a streak that you share with your friends, and you show like how long it is and stuff. And he sort of presents this thesis as like that's the future of learning almost. And there was also this it's like high-ranking UN official last year in education on the topic of education. He said something like lectures need to be limited to 19 minutes. Because that's what the average attention span of a student in 2023 at the time is. And that modern educational tools need to mimic like what we've done to ourselves, essentially. Which in some ways is a bit depressing. But then you see things like Duolingo really take off and work for a lot of people. So do you see tools like platforms like this, like Profound Academy, that maybe gamify is kind of not a fair term to use to the extent of what you guys do, but are platforms like this, in your opinion, just the way kids will learn moving forward? Like, is the textbook an outdated thing?
Yeah, the gamification is a really compelling argument, and they have definitely showed that for languages it learns pretty well. So I'm not sure if it's gonna work the same way for like computer science or some advanced topics, especially because if you're trying to teach the language, it's usually pretty easy to do on the spot and like with very small lessons, very small pieces basically. Yeah. But if you're trying to teach something pretty advanced, like a pretty advanced algorithm or pretty advanced data structure, it's going to be more difficult to do that on mobile first. And
in 5 minutes.
In 5 minutes, or even 19 minutes. Yeah. That's still pretty challenging. We try to divide the lessons into as small pieces as possible. So we make sure that if we need to teach something big, we try to chunk up it as much as possible to make it like a few lessons instead of one. And while doing that, it's not just theoretical. We're also like putting a lot of exercises and practical work into it. So what Duolingo is actually doing very well is they have a lot of practice in there. So you don't read too much or like you don't just consume. It's very interactive. So we try to keep that interactivity as well, but we don't gamify it too much. So
do you think there's a risk there of gamifying it too much?
Yeah, I think so. So the problem with gamification is that if you do it too much and you reward the student too much for doing something, then when you remove the reward, they will most probably not continue doing it. I think there was like an experiment for
like rats and cocaine. And,
Also on humans as well in terms of the salary. So when they have some kind of project that they do for fun, like they say, oh, okay, yeah, I remember. So it was done on children for painting, as far as I remember. So there were two groups. The first group was told to do the painting just as they want, just for fun. And then the second group was told, okay, you are going to do the painting and then you will get some reward. So they did it a couple of times. And then when they removed the reward, the group that was painting for the reward, they just stopped doing it. And the other one that was doing just for fun, they continued doing it. So
it's such a great point. Yeah. I'm really happy to hear you say that because like the things I said earlier to me are super depressing. Like the fact that a high-ranking UN educational official says that lectures need to be limited to 19 minutes. Like think about what that means for the future of like your doctors. Do you want your future doctor to have like only been able to pay attention for 19 minutes in like a heart surgery class? It's not like very confidence inducing. And it's almost a way of like admitting defeat. Like, you know, we now live in this world that's so like hyper, how would you say it? There's so many things like vying for our attention that it's just impossible to get people to focus for 20 minutes on anything mentally straining. Is just such a like defeatist attitude towards the problem.
Yeah, I think there is also fun in doing something for a prolonged period of time. So I remember there was one time when I was solving a problem, like it was a really, really hard problem for competitive programming. And I was solving it for a couple of weeks, not even days or like
or
hours. It was literally weeks. Yeah. So, but by the end of it, when it was actually solved, it was such a relief. It was such a joy. Yeah. And the process was pretty fun as well because I learned a lot in that process. And there was a lot of learnings in that one problem that I need to finally like get to the final stage and solve it. So it was pretty fun. So I think in that sense, we need to make the whole experience fun, but it doesn't necessarily need to be like very short or very rewarding in the meantime. So
it's the same thing with like learning a unit, right? Let's say in one of your sections of Python is object-oriented programming. Like there are several things you learn within the unit, but the one unit might take you 3 weeks or a month, or let's say, or something. And that's a prolonged task as well that hopefully has the same reward effects as finishing like one unit of the larger unit, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Let's talk about how you guys are using AI. I remember when the ChatGPT API was just released, like the next day or the day after, you announced that the platform now has an AI assistant available that helps students with problems they might be stuck on or things like that. Tell us what you guys are doing with AI on the platform.
Oh yeah, so we solve a couple of problems, but the first one was the help with their bugs. Basically, when they write code, they get stuck and they don't understand what they're doing wrong. The platform guides them in the right direction. So it's very important to not reveal the final answer to the students. Mm-hmm. So the AI assistant doesn't tell them, okay, here's the final answer. It just tells them, here is something you might have done wrong. Maybe look at this part of your code and try to understand. Maybe you need to fix something over here. So it guides them in the right direction. So that was the first tool that used AI in our platform. And it was right the day. Basically, we integrated ChatGPT's API right the day after it was released, like the API was released. But that only happened because we already had the assistant not working with the ChatGPT API. We already had an AI assistant, which was working in a little bit different way using another API. And it was obviously a little bit less performant than the ChatGPT's API. So as soon as they released it, we immediately integrated it into the platform.
Right. Interesting. And have you guys done anything more over the last year?
Oh yeah, a lot actually. So the platform became very rich in terms of the AI features. So and it's pretty apparent in the statistics of the platform. So we monitor that a lot. So before the AI things were we started to get into the platforms, we had a lot of like comments in the forums, like asking what am I doing wrong? Why is my code not working? How to fix this? I don't understand this part. So, and as soon as we integrated the AI assistant into the platform, the traffic of the forum comments like dramatically dropped. So most of the questions were just answered by the AI assistant. So besides just helping them with with their issues in the code, we also provide feedback with AI assistant. So imagine if you've solved a pretty challenging problem, most probably your code is not the most optimal one out there. So you might benefit from some feedback from the AI assistant on how to improve that code. So we provide that as well. And also for like one of the biggest releases that happened pretty recently was the AI explainer, which basically explains the current topic that we try to teach. So we give the static content that the static class.
That's loaded on the...
Yeah. We give them the lesson, basically the text of what are we going to learn right now. But the lesson that is usually pretty like one directional, right? So students just read the information and they try to consume it. So we try to make it interactive. So other than just the lesson and the text over there, we also have a chat where they can interact with that lesson and like ask questions, and the AI assistant asks them questions back. So that really improves the experience of how you learn things. So instead of
the AI assistant asks questions back?
Right, yes.
Give me an example. Like what would it ask a question about and how would that be helpful?
So imagine you're learning something about like Python for loops, let's say.
Okay.
You asked, okay, so I don't really understand how this piece actually works, how this for I in range or something works. So it explains it in detail. And then after that, it asks you, okay, so imagine you have only two items, red and blue, and you don't want to use two print statements. How would you write a program to do that with a for loop?
Okay, very cool. Yeah, so it like reinforces what you just learned.
Yeah, and you just learn through a conversation.
Right.
And that's pretty changes the way that you consume information basically from the learning platform. So instead of just reading the text, which some people prefer, so that's also important, but some people prefer to do it interactively.
Yeah.
So like two-way conversation instead of just reading something.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Yeah. That's almost, that's like how education started, if you think about it, right? It was all like private tutors way back in the day. And then we scaled it to one teacher for 30 people or 100 people in the university.
Yeah, and there are some universities with one instructor and 1,000 students in the huge auditorium there.
Exactly, yeah. Okay. I cut you off earlier. You were talking about some of the other features you guys have built out.
Yeah, one other thing was, before this, it was pretty challenging to detect like spam comments or like hateful speech in comments. You basically so in the forum, if you had some like bad actors doing some weird stuff, you would either need to use some system from Google or like AWS, or you needed to train your whole neural network or some kind of system that detects some weird things over there. And because we don't have that much data yet, we are not able to train that kind of data. We are not able to collect that data set and like train a neural network on that. So what we did is just basically tell a system like ChatGPT, okay, detect like comments that students are posting solutions, which is not allowed. You should block all the comments that contain hateful speech, contain irrelevant information, like some links from weird places, contain some weird words. And you need to do that in multiple languages. So you need to detect it, even if it's like in Arabic, let's say.
Right.
So, and the good part is that right now that whole code basically is like 200 lines of code, maybe 100 lines of code, and it works pretty well. And it used to be really challenging, like basically 2 years ago.
Yeah. Especially for like another language, if someone on your team doesn't speak Arabic, you have no way of moderating it, essentially.
Right. Yeah. And that actually brought us to a pretty big reveal of information, let's say, because we just started detecting all the spam comments that were happening on the platform. And apparently there were about like 30% of the comments where students would post their solutions and then delete after that. So that like some maybe classmate would copy paste that solution or something like that. So now all of that is completely gone. So that small, I mean, it's not a huge change in terms of the whole platform if you look at it, but that small change really modifies how people behave on the platform, which is really important. Because if the students go into the platform and they start like thinking about how they would cheat and like all the different ways, how I post a comment and delete and everything, it just like destroys the environment of the platform.
It also disincentivizes schools to adopt your platform as a solution. Right?
Yeah,
because they don't trust it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting like compliance thing for education that I had never thought about. Okay, that's really interesting. You said you guys are playing around with the idea of expanding to non-computer science domains. Tell us about what you've done with math.
Oh yeah, so we were experimenting with it for a couple of months already. So what is the challenge of math right now? If you try to scale math, you are most probably like, if you go back 2 years or 3 years prior to this, you would most probably scale it with multiple choices, maybe text answers, and not much beyond that. So you're losing on a huge chunk of math, which involves like theorem proving, more involved work, like showing step by step how you arrive at an answer. And that is like the most important one for like learning math. So if you...
Once you get to higher levels.
Yeah. So you really want the students to show how you actually arrive to the final destination, how you get the final answer. So that's pretty important. So before this, it would be pretty challenging to do that. But right now, we were experimenting with a couple of things of how to make it actually possible. So right now, one of the approaches that seems to be pretty promising is the student can write their solution as a text and then they submit it. So after that, the system goes and checks that submission against the rubric that the teacher tells it. So the teacher has to provide some rubric, and the teacher can also provide some examples of right and wrong solutions. Yeah. So if the teacher notices that there are a couple of submissions that pass the AI test, so the solution is actually wrong, but the AI checker is telling that it's right, the teacher can actually either modify the rubric or they can provide a couple of examples to the AI system to tune it in the right direction. So here is the wrong solution. You have to tell it that this is wrong. This is the right solution. You have to tell this right. And this seems to be working pretty good in terms of how good the AI system scales and how well it checks. So if you are willing to give it a couple of examples, let's say like 3 or 4, it can actually check 2,000 submissions by students in the next couple of days. So you give them a homework assignment, like let's say if you are the technological University of Munich and you have 2,000 students in your class, it's a huge headache to check all those homeworks. Yeah. So you can basically outsource all that checking to the AI system, and the only thing that's left for you is to go through it and just scroll through all the solutions and like the grading final outcomes and say, okay, this seems to be fine. Yeah. And that's it.
So are you guys piloting this anywhere?
Yeah, it's currently, I wouldn't say too internal, because all the schools and universities that use our platform can already use it. So they can already try automating some of their like math or theorem proving stuff and see how it works.
And once you can do it for math, then you can do it for physics, and like it might look different, but if you have a system that can check like theorem proofs and stuff, then it's easy to apply that to chemistry as well.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. If you solve it for math, I think all the STEM will be solved.
Yeah, like everything stems from math.
Yeah.
How do you see you guys playing a role that's different than like what the Khan Academies of the world have done? Because they've also built a really interactive digital platform that covers math from the very basic arithmetic all the way to like differential equations or something.
Yeah, I think in that sense of the content, we are pretty similar to Khan Academy or like Brilliant.org or any of the platforms that provide the content. But we want to make sure that the schools and universities can tune everything to their needs. So most of the schools and universities, and especially professors that have like strong opinions, they want to customize it to their needs and like really tune it. So we make sure to provide all of that functionality and the content and all the automating stuff, that all the tooling that we provide to the schools and universities. So
that component I think is extremely valuable, because I remember when I was in university, like for example, for calculus class, yes, there's Khan Academy. Khan Academy has calculus, but there was this other platform called Clutch Prep. I don't know if you've heard of it or not, but they customize it based on textbook, which like the textbook that my professor was using, I could get lessons specialized for that. And that level of customization, that level of like personalization to me was much more valuable than digging through a large platform like Khan Academy and trying to find the exact thing that I was looking for. So this is even greater because it's not at the textbook level, but it's at the like curriculum level of a specific institution. So there's tremendous value there.
So each university and each professor can actually tune everything to their like wants and needs. So that makes a big difference, especially for fields in like computer science, because it's pretty new in the sense of like a lot of things are changing pretty often, pretty frequently. So professors usually want to either stay with the current thing that they're teaching or move pretty fast with the industry and like teach the new thing. So for instance, there are a lot of universities that currently teach Java as their introductory course to computer science. There are some universities who teach Python, and others are teaching Rust, let's say.
Right.
So although I don't know anyone who's
Like
teaching
C,
Rust
yeah.
right now. Yeah. But so like all of those can be like really challenging if you are targeting to create one solution that will fit all. But if you provide customizability and they can tune everything to their needs, you can basically provide the platform and they will know what to do with it.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Is it super difficult to sell to universities?
To the big ones especially.
Yeah, a lot of red tape and bureaucracy to cut through.
Yeah. Yeah, especially with the bureaucracy stuff. It's, it takes a lot of time. But if you come with the understanding that it's going to take a lot of time, you're actually a little bit prepared. So that's normal.
But a professor can never adopt it themselves, right? Like typically the institution has to approve it? Or?
Yeah, if it's a pilot, we let the professors try it out and see if it's actually something useful for them. So, but if we start a real partnership, then the whole university should like adapt it, and like we need to start a collaboration with the university, not just professors.
Not just because it's too hard at the individual professor level. Yeah.
We actually at the beginning, so we started like trying to sell from like bottom up. So we would try to convince a lot of professors or like lecturers to start using the platform. And then we noticed that they would love it. They would start using it. But if the top people, they
found out,
the top people, if they don't want to use the platform, then it's never going to happen. So the right way seems to be, at least for now, seems to be the thing that's working right now is like top to bottom, because usually professors are on board and they want to use it, and the students are also loving it. So the most challenging part is like convincing the universities and like the top people that make the decisions at schools to adopt it. Yeah.
Interesting. Can you tell us how many institutions you're in now?
Yeah, so in Armenia right now there are 17 high schools that use the platform. Like I want to be clear, so 16 out of those are in partnership with FAST Foundation.
Okay.
There is a program called Generation AI where they teach computer science and the basics of machine learning, artificial intelligence in high schools, and they have like plans to expand it to universities. And
so the Generation AI program is being done through Profound Academy.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Currently, the students in regions and also in Yerevan learn through Profound Academy the basics of Python. Next year they will learn the basics of machine learning, and then we will see how far we go.
Yeah, very cool.
So other than that, we have a couple of universities that we're doing a pilot, and like one university, one college, and one high school in India that we're like right now doing a like talks and pilot with. So let's see how this goes.
Right. And all that in 1 year.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, the last year was pretty interesting in terms of like the progress this had, because before that we were like really focusing on B2C business model. We were trying to make it work. So
that was one of your first C's, I think.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. When I saw the AI assistant, I was really curious to try it out.
Awesome. Yeah. So we were trying to like target learners, basically become a competitor of brilliant.org or brilliant.org, but in the space of computer science. But then realized that we would reach a lot more students and we would provide way more value if we partner with universities and schools. And that would be a way better and more scalable business model. So in terms of the business, it would be really hard to like do the tutoring yourself and also develop the platform, develop the curriculum and everything. So if you're doing the tutoring, that's a whole another like world in there, because you need to like do the scheduling, do all this CRM stuff with your customers, your students. So that's going to be really challenging. You
mean tutoring like as in individual tutors also using the platform for their private students?
Oh, not really. We were trying to do the tutoring classes like group tutoring sessions for our students.
I see.
So we were selling tutoring basically.
I see. Yeah, that's much harder to scale.
That was really hard to scale, especially when you come to the scheduling part of like which hours are okay for the tutors and which hours are okay for students.
Yeah.
And sometimes those are completely different, and the hours sometimes change. It's not constant.
Yeah.
So it becomes really hard to like manage that. And I think we were pretty lucky to realize that would be a really difficult business model to scale. So we pivoted to a completely different thing where we help a lot more students, and basically by helping educational institutions to use the platform, we help a lot more students to get really good computer science knowledge.
It's also interesting that like, so Profound Academy has its way that it differentiates itself from other platforms, but this kind of like tech augmented education has existed for at least like 10 years now, more probably, with the advent of Khan Academy and then things like Duolingo and stuff. But when you do it at the consumer level, you're reliant on if you want to have an impact, right? You're reliant on the consumer's ability to like stick to it, which frankly like is hard once you're older. Like life gets in the way. It's never a priority. There are other things, it's like your job. But at the institutional level, they have to do it because they're enrolled students, right? In high school even more so, and then in university and stuff. So bringing the tech to that layer is probably much more impactful in the long run. Because if it's actually a better way to learn, then it should be done in the primary learning time, like in institutions, and not just as like the people who pick it up as a hobby and want to extend their streak. Right?
Yeah, I think so. When we started doing it, so at first we were just doing the software. We weren't doing the tutoring part. So, and then we realized that if we want to have a low dropout rate, which is how many students actually finish your course instead of like leaving it halfway through. So we realized that there has to be some human touch to it. So there is more accountability with a tutor. There is more question answering with a tutor. There is a lot more things happening when there is a real person in front of you. So that's why we started doing the tutoring sessions, and that actually helped improve the completion rate. But in the end, it would be like really a hard challenge to scale all that. Yeah. So if we can bring the universities to the platform and help them that way, that would be like really, really beneficial, I think, for everyone.
No, for sure. Last question. Where do you hope to see Profound in 5 years?
Oh, really good question. I hope that we would start doing a lot more collaborations with a lot more both schools and universities. And I hope that we will finally be able to crack that STEM education and we would go into the STEM field as well. So I think that those like two major things, partnering with a lot more universities and schools and expanding to STEM would be the major two goals.
I said last question, but another one came up. So what is it about outside of STEM that makes it hard to expand to? Like, why not literature or, I don't know, something else? Is it just they require less interactivity?
I'm not sure, to be honest. So if I'm being honest, I wouldn't be able to like answer that through my experience because I'm not that great. Yeah, I'm not that great in like history or like linguistics or any of those. But I think if you would try to learn history, for instance, you could make it work with some interactive platform. Like, let's say instead of like just memorizing some dates or like some events, you would try to make it into a debate or something like that. But the debate wouldn't be with the student. It would be with an AI, let's say. Sounds like a science fiction, but I think it's doable. Yeah. So if you can convince the AI that your point of view is right, or like you bring enough evidence from the history material that you are provided with, I think you can learn a lot like that. And that can actually work.
That I never thought about that. It's super interesting. But I can also imagine just what a headache the politics of that would be. Like presenting an AI that tells you to argue, you're trying to argue some point of view and quote unquote convince the AI that you're right. but then like who determines what is right from what historical point of view and things like that, especially when you then think of integrating that into a school board system or like an institution that has like strict protocols and committees. And I think you just stick to STEM for now.
I think STEM is better for now.
But that's really, really interesting. And probably something we'll see like in the coming years, I imagine, because AI education won't stick to just STEM. It'll definitely like infiltrate like all the
for sure. I mean, there are already some tools that do creative writing checking, for instance. So if you submit some essay and there is some rubric that the AI system can follow, then they grade it pretty accurately. So in terms of like the automation of how teachers grade their homeworks and stuff like that, I think that is already possible. But like if we're thinking of some new paradigm of how to learn non-STEM fields, it's like a wild world. Wild
West, yeah. Thank you so much for coming on, Martin.
Thanks for having me. It was amazing. Thanks.
Thank you so much.